welcome. My name is Victor. I work for the Data Analytics Center at the Algonquin College, and today we're gonna go through the mean stack. Okay, so what will we learn today about the mean stack? The components of mean stack are MongoDB, so it's our database, Express, Angular, and Node.js. Angular is our front end, Node.js is our back end, and Express is the glue between them. We're going to learn how Angular provides a framework for building the front end. We're going to learn how our MongoDB stores the data. We're going to learn how Node and Express glue the components together. So this is our table of contents. We're going to have an introduction to the mean stack. We're going to set up our environment. We're going to write the backend and the front end. And then we're going to save the results of our queries to the MongoDB. And then we're going to reveal that. In this workshop, you're going to gain an introduction to the mean stack, which is a group of JavaScript tools which you can use for full stack development. Let's dive in. Okay, so what is web development? Web developers design, build, and maintain websites, and there are mainly two categories. There is the front end, which is what the client does, the client receives in a client-server connection, and there's the other part, which is the backend or the server side. The front end is where the users interact with your software, with your code. So we usually have technologies like HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, and in the backend we have the things that the user doesn't see. So it can be written in any backend language. We can use here Node.js, we can use Ruby, Python, we can use PHP, Java, C#, any backend language you might think of. A good key term here is a full stack developer. A full stack developer is someone who is familiar with the backend and the front end, so both kinds of development. Okay, what's a stack? How does an app like a to-do list work? Okay, the user types in go for a run, for example, on the app and click submit. So that goes for the front end. Our front end, written in JavaScript, formats the data and then sends it to the backend. And the backend does its thing, which is saving the data and manipulating it in a way that it could be saved. Then the backend sends a response to the front end, which can be anything, such as a status saying that it worked, that is, the data has been saved. And the front end does what it can do with that information, so it can update the display to save the data. Acronomically, mean, M-E-A-N, is MongoDB, Express, Angular, and Node.js, as he have already talked about. So the database and the front end and back end, and then the communication between them. So our mean stack is basically the front end, which is the Angular part that interacts with the user, and then we have that talking to our back end, which is our Node.js plus the Express, and then the backend talks to the MongoDB, which is our database. So this is our stack. This is what we're gonna build here, and I'm gonna show you it working, and at the end of this course you're gonna have it working too. So how does it work? We're gonna navigate to our website, and then the website is going to display what we have for the front end. So it's going to display the web page for us. We're gonna submit the image to our server side, and then our server side is going to send a request to our Face API, which we're gonna learn what it is later, and then it's going to send a response to our front end, and after that our server side is going to save the data to our database using MongoDB. Normally, what you need in your computer to be able to build this is Node.js. You need MongoDB installed as softwares in your computer. You also need to download a sample of the code to your computer, and then you need to get the developer credentials from Microsoft API, and then test the app. We are not going to do the first step, neither the second one, because we have a tool called Glitch. We're gonna talk about that later. But we are going to have credentials for Microsoft API, and the rest of it you're going to do as well. And we are going to use Node.js and MongoDB, but in an online version of them. Now that you understand how the app works, we can set up the environment, which is the next step. Okay, Glitch. What is Glitch? Glitch is an online environment to use Node.js to build web apps. So we don't need to install MongoDB or Node.js because we're gonna use an online version of them. First of all, to be able to use Glitch, we're gonna need to sign up for an account. So glitch.com, let's sign up. You can click sign in. You can use your Google account, you can use GitHub account, you can use Facebook account, or you can just create an account with an email. I'm just going to go with my Google account, and after you have this set up, then we can proceed to the next steps. After we sign up for an account, we need to go to the project URL. You can click view source here. It's going to show the environment that you use to editing all these files, everything. Everything we need is here, but we can't edit this. This is not your project. So how do you make this your project? After you have an account and you click to remix this and you wait just a few moments, it's going to create a project for you with a different name that you can edit. Now I can add things to this, okay? Also, you can change the theme of the editor here. So this is our project basic code. After we click remix and then we create a new project based on the basic code, we're going to set up our Atlas account. So next thing is going to MongoDB. So we need to sign up for an account here. After you log in to your account, you're gonna see the organizations tab in the cloud.mongodb. We need to create a new organization for this project because if you don't have any, you don't have any MongoDB database. So we can just use the Atlas here. Okay, nothing more than that. And then we don't need to add any members because we are the only member. So create organization. Perfect. Okay, after we create an organization, we can create a new project. So we go for project and then we call what our project is gonna be. Let's call this Emojifier. Okay, we create our project. We are only the only member of our project. Okay, after we create our project, we just need to build a cluster, a free one, just to be able to save the data. And we don't need to do anything at all. No credit card or anything. We just are going to create a cluster, a free one, just to test our app. Okay? And this cluster is what we're gonna need to use to save our data. After we're done with our MongoDB account, okay, so after we're done with our MongoDB account, we can go to our project layout. Now we're gonna learn what this means, what each folder and file here means. E2E means end to end. These are test files for a project. We're not gonna use this here, okay? But in a full stack project, you would probably use this to include some tests to verify your app and see if it behaves the right way. The license file and the README file. So the license is just about who runs this project, who created the whole project, and the information about copying and using the files. The README file has just information about what the project is. We have the angular.json and then we have the package.json. The angular.json is about the Angular project, and our compiler will know what to do with our code based on this file. In our package.json file, we have all the node modules for our project. So we need to run our npm code in order to install all the dependencies in our project. And the npm will install based on this package.json file. So tsconfig.json configures the TypeScript that Angular's use. Okay, so the index.ts just manages the backend of our application, and the db.ts manages the connection to our database. So the src folder contains the assets that we need in our project, such as fonts, images, and some HTML files. The src/app contains all our front-end code, okay, which will be used by Angular. We'll be changing the contents of the app component, which will be used by Laravel. And like I said, .ts means TypeScript. Okay, so let's talk about Angular concepts. The app.component.ts imports from the face.model, the safe html.pipe, and the api.service. Okay, so the face.model defines the model of the data. So the form the data is built when we're getting it from the Microsoft API. The safe HTML transforms the component attribute for a display. The api.service defines not a component or model, but a service. So it helps us get the backend data using an API. And then we have the app routing module. We're not going to use this in this project, okay? But this file manages the routes of a complex app. After we have our account and our code, this is what our app is going to be doing. So if we reload this page, this is what our code should be doing, right? It gets the emoji and put it on top of the other picture, which is the picture that is in this link. We can see that by typing it in the URL. So this is what our app is going to be doing. Okay, so let's go back to our glitch account and see the code we just got from our AC Emojifier template. I called it AC Emojifier. If we try to show this, we're gonna see that it just doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because we have some steps to install this that we haven't done yet. So the first step we need to do is to install all the libraries, all the dependencies, and our package.json. Here in dependencies, we can see that this will install Angular and other dependencies that we need to make our project runnable. To install a dependency is fairly simple. We just need to type in npm install. This is gonna take some minutes. Okay, so after we have installed all our dependencies, we should be able to see something like this. If we click on show and in a new window, you might be able to see something like this. Actually, if we click something here, like nothing happens, we can copy and paste everything, like nothing is gonna change here because our backend is not working and our front end doesn't do anything. So next steps, make them do something. Our app needs to communicate with the Microsoft Face API. So the next thing we need is to get that API key. So let's get our Face API key. Microsoft Face API. We can click the first link, and then we need to try a free trial for this API. So we're gonna do start free here. It's gonna ask us to sign up, which is exactly what we need. After you complete your registration, you can just go to your portal. Okay, so let's search for Face here. Okay, in our marketplace, we can see Face here, which is the facial recognition system. So we're gonna click that. We need a name for our resource. We can call this Emojifier API. Let's say it. We need to select the number of calls. We're gonna make it in a certain time, so it's gonna be less than 20 calls per minute for sure. We need a resource group, so let's call this my API. Okay, and then let's just press create. After your deployment is complete, we don't need this page anymore. What we do need is our API key. So we can go to Microsoft Azure here, and then we can go to our dashboard or all our resources, and then we go to the app we just created, and then under the app we created, we're gonna go under keys and endpoint, and there is what we need. So we need our key 1 in order to use this endpoint that we created. We're gonna copy our endpoint, we can just click here, and then we're gonna go under our server index.ts here, and then we're gonna paste our URI base here. Okay, so it's gonna have your app.cognitiveservices.azure.com/face/v1.0/detect. So okay, so this ending is very important, and it's not here in your endpoint, so you need to have this here. Okay, so after that we need our subscription key. Your subscription key is the key number 1 here. Okay, so we're gonna copy that and paste here. You can paste your own here. After we have our Face API set up, we can now do the request to it using the URI base that we made before and the subscription key. When the users click the button Emojify, this is gonna happen. And what is this? This is a request to the Face API, which gives us a body as an answer, and this body contains information about the picture. Okay, so we need to save this information in our database, our MongoDB database. But before we do that, let's return this to our front end. To do that, we need to remember where we are and what we are doing. Okay, so this is a post method to this endpoint, and res here is the answer that our backend is gonna give to our front end, the response. So we're gonna write something to this response. So it's gonna be res, which is our response, and then we're gonna send something to our response. And what is this something? We're gonna answer to our front end what we just got from our Face API. So we can just paste body here. After we do this, we can go to our front end component here and see what we have here. So we have this line here, this.html to add, and we're going to do something here. We're going to print what we just got as a response from our backend. Okay, so let's see how this works here. To test it, we can just copy this and paste here, and if it works, it should be showing here the result of our Face API request. Let's see. Okay, so this is the result. We have a face ID, we have a rectangle, we have some attributes, and right now this face here only shows up happiness. So this is what's saying here, happiness, right? So happiness is 1 here. So if we try with this, it should be showing our happiness emoji on top of the picture. Okay, after that, let's go back to our backend. And now we can go back to our backend to save the response body of our Face API to our database. We know that our database file is db. Okay, db.ts, and it has 2 methods here, which are not completely implemented, but we need to use them. We have a db variable here, so let's see. db.saveFace, the saveFace method we got from here, and it takes 2 arguments. These 2 arguments you need to pass. So let's say data. What is data? This data is the body of our Face API request, and the image URL is what we got from our front end. So we can just keep image URL just like it is right now, because this is already a variable that came from here. So now we just need to figure out what the data is here. To make it easier to understand, let's make data a variable. and we need to assign some value to this variable. And the value we're gonna assign is the body of our request. But this is an object, and we want to send some string to our database. So to make an object and a string, we can just use json.stringify. If you're familiar with JavaScript, you probably knows already this method. Okay, so this is our data, and this is a method that we're calling, and this is the image URL. Perfect. But is this working? It's probably not. Even if we try to make it work here, let's see what happens. Let's copy this again. Okay, so we're only printing this, and that's it. So let's make the db.ts file work. We see here our save face method, and there's nothing in it. So we need to insert the object to our database. How does MongoDB work? So MongoDB works with collections, and in order to save this to our database, we need to create a collection and then save the information into this collection. So the first thing we're gonna do is dbo, which is the database we got from our DB connection, dot create collection. What this will do is create a collection in our MongoDB database with the name we write here. So let's make this faces. After this, we need to get the value that has been sent to us to our method here and save that to our collection. Okay, so the first thing, we're gonna create that. My object face equals to, okay, so this will be a JavaScript object, and we're gonna save this JavaScript object with all the information to the database. The first thing we have here we need to save to the database is the image URL, and another thing that we need is the face attributes. So what are the face attributes? Is what we got from data here. Okay, so it's a string that contains a JSON. Okay, so let's save this here, and then after we have our my object face, now we can insert my object face to our database. So next thing, we're gonna get our collection. This is our collection. And then we're gonna do something very simple. We're just gonna insert one. And what is the name of the object? It's the constant we created before. So my object face. Okay, and after that, we need to know if something is happening or not. So we have a callback here, okay, that has an error and a response. So error and response. And after that, we need to close this. And let's just say that if we have an error, we're gonna throw that error. Oh, of course, throw the error. Okay, to make sure that if we have any error in the connection or trying to insert the data, we make sure that that error is gonna be fixed. So after that, we're just going to log that we have written one register to our database. Okay, after that, we can just close our DB connection. We should always close our DB connection after doing something. Okay, that makes sure that it's not still open when we try to do another connection. Okay, so this should be working already. If we go back to our database connection here, we don't have a username, a password, or a host. and this is something we need to do. So now we can go to our Atlas database again, and we have our project here, and we have our clusters. And if we try to connect, this is going to show that we need to add an IP address to our connections. So we can go to our network tab here and add an address to the whitelist. Since this is glitch we're talking about, so it's not in your own computer, it's not your own IP address, you should be adding glitches host to the IP address here. But what we can do here to make it easier is just allow access from anywhere. So we can use this in this app or any other app on the web. So we're gonna allow this to everybody and then confirm it. Now if we try to connect here, and we do have already a connection, now we can connect our app to our MongoDB. This is the whole thing we need. It shows us the user, the password, and URL. The host we're gonna copy, and then we're gonna paste under host here. We need to get our root user here, and then we need to get our password. You're gonna get your own. You can go here and then go in edit if you want, and then you can edit the password and then you can copy it. Okay, and then after you copy it, you paste it here. After you have your environment set up here, now this should be working, and you should get one register inserted here in your logs. So let's see if it happens. Let's reload this page just to make sure. We copy this, and then we paste, and then we get a response. So let's see if anything was inserted. Yeah, it looks like there was one record inserted. Okay, so this part is working. It looks like it's perfect. Let's go back to our index. Okay, now we have our request API to the API. We have our response, but we are not getting the object from our database. So we're only going to insert something there, and we're never going to read it back, right? And we can see that we have a read method here, which is getFace. Okay, so let's do this to do part. Let's make the getFace. So first of all, if we have an error, we should call back with a new value because something happened and nothing was found. And after that, we're gonna throw our error. Okay, so if we don't have our error, we're gonna try to get the information from our database. So we need our DBO again. We're gonna need our collection. So we're gonna let cursor. So our cursor is a variable, and then we're gonna create a cursor out of our collection, and then we're gonna find something. Okay, so the way MongoDB works, we can find an object searching by its attributes, and we know that our objects only have two attributes, which is here an image URL and a face attribute. Okay, so what we need to do here is to search with the image URL we're having here. So we need to find every record that has the image URL equals to our image URL that we just got here. So image URL. Okay. After that, we need to make sure, we need to check if we have found anything. So let's see. Cursor is what goes through all the records that have been found. Okay, so we're gonna do a next here, and then we're gonna do a then here with the result. What we are going to do with the result is call back to our previous function, so result. So this is all we need in this function. Next, we need to use this function somewhere, and this function takes two arguments, the callback and the image URL. So let's copy this, go to our index, and just like it's saying here, we need to get the object from the database and place the callback here. So this will be our callback. Let's do it here. So getFace. Okay, what has the getFace method? DB. Okay, and we're gonna have a callback here. So this is what we're gonna do. Our callback is gonna be a function, okay, instead of a value. And then let's make this all indented. Okay, and then we're gonna have a result here. So we need to check if this result is not null, so if the result actually exists. So if we have a result, okay, and we have the attributes of that result to make sure that we never get a null value in the face attributes, we're gonna send to our response the things we got from our result, which is the face attributes. So result.face attributes. But there's one thing. Our face attributes is a string with a JSON content. So we cannot use a string there in our front end. We're going to use an object. So we're going to do something like this. JSON.parse for the result. And then we're going to return an object just like we're returning it here. Okay, but what happens if we don't have a result? So if we don't have a result, we're going to call this part. Having this done, we can test this now and make sure that this has already been saved to make sure that we're gonna get the exact same thing. We can run this again. Okay, and with any luck, it should be showing here. And it is. So how do we know if we got this from our database or if we got this from the API? So we can do just a console.log to make sure that we're gonna get just the object from our database here. So we can show it here. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, we try it again, and here we have the result. Okay, it has the image URL, it has an ID, and this is our image URL, and this is the face attributes. Okay, perfect. It is working. We can get the data and we can paste data. Now we need to work on the front end part. We're gonna be working with Angular as our front end, and Angular basically gets our TS file and transforms that into JavaScript. We're gonna need to build every time we change something. We're gonna have to build that into a JavaScript that is readable by the browser. Okay, so coming back here to the component we have here, we have the this.html to add equals to json.stringify. It means that this is gonna be showing here, and that's not what we want. We actually want an image to pop up here, so that's the next thing we're gonna do. We don't need anymore this data. We don't need to be showing it anymore, so we can just remove this. Perfect. And now we're gonna add the image to our website. Okay, so it's gonna start with adding just the image first of all, we're gonna add the image URL to our website. This .image URL means that this component has a property called image URL, and we use this property somewhere else. Let's see where. So if we go to our component.html, which is not the TS file, we can see that somewhere here we have an image URL, and we can press Ctrl F to search for it, or if you're in a Mac, you can press Command F and search for image URL, and we can find that here. So Angular is testing if we have any value inside this .image URL. If we don't have any value, this is not gonna be showing. Okay, and if we do have a URL, it's going to show an image, and the source of the image is gonna be our this.image URL. So let's go back here. We have the this.image URL. So that's what we're gonna access here. So this.image URL equals to image URL. What does this mean? It means that this image URL we got from the parameter of send file, and this image URL we get from our component. It's a property, and this property we're altering here. So after we have this, we are already going to be showing it here, the image. So let's test that. In order to test everything we do on our front end, we will need always to open the terminal here and execute a simple command. It's gonna take a while to execute though. It's a build command that works with Angular. Okay, so you're gonna type npm run build. This is gonna build all our TS and HTML with Laravel to JavaScript and HTML file. So let's press enter here and let's wait for it to execute. So after Angular finishes the build, you can already test your app. So let's do that. We can click show in a new window, and then if we write any picture, you get the URL from the web, you should be able to see the picture showing up here, okay, at the bottom. Let's see it now. Okay, so our app looks like it's working, right? So now what we need to do is to put the emoji on top of this picture. That's the last part of our project. So let's do it. We are going to have some HTML here and CSS. We're gonna use position absolute, and we're gonna set the position of our emoji to fit exactly the face here. Okay, let's do that. Okay, to start, we need to create our style. So const style. Okay, this will be the position. So the position of the emoji. Okay, we know that we need a position absolute. So absolute. Okay. After that, we need some other stuff. So we need, let's make it more visible like this. Okay, we need a height. Something's gonna be here and it's in pixels. We also need a width, which will be in pixels as well. We need a left value and a top value. Where can we get those? So we have them here. There are already variables with them. So let's use them. Using this JavaScript notation, we can put the value of our height here and our width and our left and our top. Okay, so this should be in our emoji image. Okay, so now we're going to create our emoji image element. Okay, that's the next thing. So we know that our emoji is gonna be an image that is in our assets, and we're gonna have a class here that is called emoji. Okay, that's for CSS. And we're gonna have a style here that we have already created before. And for the last thing, we're gonna have the src of our image. And this is the tricky part. We need to get exactly the right emotion and put there. How do we do that? Okay, so if we go under our assets here, we have some emotions here. We have anger, contempt, disgust, fear, happiness, neutral, sadness, and surprise. They're all images, .png, as you can see. So what we need to do here is nothing more, nothing less than just assets slash the emotion here. So how do we print the emotion here into our string? We have seen this before. We can use just this. And we're gonna have our main emotion showed here. So let's see how we can get our main emotion. Also, we should be using already our style here. So style. Okay, now let's get our emotion. So we have a face rectangle here, and we are using it to set the style of our emoji, right? We can see that we're using this, but are we using this anywhere else? No, we're not. So that's the next thing we're gonna do. We're gonna use that. Okay, so we're gonna get the main emotion. Perfect. Okay, so the face attributes object that we got from our face has something in there. If we go here to our models, we can see that we have a face rectangle and we have an object, okay, here, and it is called emotion. So face attribute has an emotion object, and that's what we need to get there. So we're gonna get an emotion here, okay? But this emotion here, it's actually not just one thing, but it's an object that gets all the emotions that could be here in our face attribute. The response from face API had all emotions in it and just an index of how much of that emotion it could be detected there. So in the emotion object, we need to look for the main emotion of all of them. So let's get our main emotion. Okay, as you can see, we are using this main emotion here, right? Okay, so now we're gonna use a JavaScript trick to loop through the emotion object and see all keys that are in it. So we can do object.keys and then the object we have, so emotion. And for each key that we have, we're gonna do something. Okay, so let's say this is gonna be our key. So here is where we decide whether the emotion we're looping through right now is the main emotion or not. So we need to check if the main emotion already exists, right? So if we don't have any main emotion, we can already set the main emotion to the current emotion, which is our key, right? But if we already have an emotion, we need to check for something else. If the index of the current emotion is not greater than the index of the main emotion that we have saved before. So let's do that. emotion, and here's where we get the value of this key in this object. We use the square brackets. Okay, so if the current emotion that we're checking for is greater than our main emotion, we are also gonna set the main emotion to our new key. So here we're checking for the greatest emotion that we can see in that picture. Okay, and after we have checked all of that, we can just print the value of the current emotion .png and get the image from it. We have our emoji element here, but we're not adding it to our page. So the last thing we're doing in this function is actually adding the emoji to the HTML. So this .html to add equals to our emoji element. And that's it. Now we can build our app again and it should be fully working. Okay, so finally, after your Angular builds, I'm pretty sure you should see something like this happening. Okay, if you have any other picture URL, you can test it here. And this is it. Thank you for joining us for today. Feel free to modify your code and do whatever you like. You can talk to me in the comments section. Thank you. Bye bye.